Hi everybody, as you can tell from the title, we rolled this YXZ 3 times. I'm here today to tell the story and go over the damage. I got my little sidekick here to be a major distraction and make it as hard as possible. We're out here on a really weird weather day. It's February in Utah. The high should be like in the 20s and it's about 65 degrees today. Predators are out taking advantage of the heat. We're quite certain we heard a cat get murdered the other night. Just a little bit of struggle and then snap, and there was nothing else. So that was a little bit traumatizing. So we're out here braving the wilderness to bring you this video today. We'll have to make sure we keep our eyes open so we don't get eaten, because I'm sure at least one of us tastes good. Before we get to the damage, let's talk about how it happened. We were in the sand dunes, which is always the #1 ingredient to danger. Sand dunes are so much fun, but of course there's always a lot of danger involved. It was the last ride of the day, of course, in the last 5 minutes of the last ride of the day, of course. And we were going through a very steep bowl. We were either the 5th or 6th car in line. We had a whole bunch of cars with us that day. The car we were following was basically stock, I think 2018 Razor 4-seater. So stock suspension, stock power. We figured as long as they made it through, we would make it through. That was just kind of the plan for the day. It's just follow that Razor. If they make it through, we'd make it through. So they did make it through and we did not. There's a few factors involved. One of the major factors is they had a much longer wheelbase. I love the short wheelbase on the Yamaha, but it can also get you into trouble sometimes. So as we went through, the rear end started to slip a little bit. And it happened in a millisecond and in slow motion at the same time, if that makes any sense. It happened too fast to do anything about it, but it was, as you replay it in your head, you can feel everything that happened. But the back end started to slide out, and I tried to turn out of it, but it was too late. We were already going. As soon as we got completely sideways, I think we hit the lip where the sugar met the ice, and we rolled. And we were airborne. We flipped. And it probably only lasted 10 to 15 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. We could feel the wheels catch, and then just silence, just nothing, and then boom, we were on the roof. And then up again, silence, boom, on the roof. Up again, boom, on the roof. So it was just like, you could kind of feel the tires touch, dun dun, and then nothing happening, and then just slam down on the roof. It was crazy. So we rolled at least 3 times is the story, because some of the witnesses thought they might have saw 4, but everybody saw at least 3. We remember 3, so that's why that's kind of the joke. We rolled at least 3 times. So they call that a high side roll, when you roll side over side over side. We rolled somewhere between 40 and 50, maybe 60 feet as far as the ground we covered. The ice, or the sand, was frozen so solid there was not a mark left in the sand. So it might as well have been concrete where we rolled. You couldn't tell. We could see where our wheels broke traction up the hill. You could see where it kind of started to slide down, and then nothing else. We did land on all 4 tires, so that was kind of nice. Anybody who's got one of these YXZs probably wants to know, first of all, how are the passengers? Of course, anytime you're in a wreck like that, your first concern is, how are the passengers? And then once you know everybody's okay, how was the car? So it was 2 adults in there. Luckily, no little ones. Hey! It was me and Nicole. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you've probably seen Nicole at some point. She's a 6 foot tall, giant, red-headed Danish woman. So she's a big old broad, and she likes to push her weight around. She's a sturdy gal, to say the least. So luckily it was me and her in there. 2 people who can kind of handle something like that. I should also say she's very pretty, in case she sees this. You're beautiful, Nicole. We ended up with some very sore bodies after that. Where the seat belt sits on our hips, we had a 2 huge bruises on each side, and then a little continuous bruise connecting the dots. And then of course we had very sore shoulders from hanging on. A lot of people, when they're in a rollover, their first instinct is to put their hands out, put their hands up to try to brace themselves. Don't do that. Always hold on. So she was holding on to the bar on the passenger side, and of course I was holding on to the steering wheel. And that just made us really sore in both shoulders. Nicole actually felt like her shoulder popped out of socket. We didn't have to like pop it back in or anything, but she was sure she felt it pop out of her socket. And even now, about 2 months later, she's still really sore in that shoulder. So it definitely could have been something like that. At the very least, she definitely pulled something. And then we were really stupid and we were not wearing helmets. And I got a huge gash on my head. I'll try to show it in the camera. For some reason, it doesn't show up on the camera, but there's a scar about that big on my head. But I'll try at least. Right there, it covers that big of a hole in my head. Something in the car just sliced my skin off, and it sliced it all the way to about here. And at that point, the skin flapped over. This is disgusting, I know. We were able to flap it back over, immediately put pressure on there, and it obviously healed, but I'll be scarred for life. It kind of looks like it looks more like a burn than a cut for some reason, but it is what it is. We do a lot of our riding on our home trails here right by our house, and we don't typically wear helmets on these trails. They're really slow. There's nothing technical. There's really nothing dangerous. They're really just fun dirt trails. And I think we just got a little too used to that because we didn't even realize we forgot our helmets. In the sand, we always wear helmets. That's kind of that's one of our rules, is we always wear helmets in the sand because it's dangerous. And I think we just got so used to not having helmets that even when we were there and we were riding, we didn't even realize we didn't have our helmets because we're just so used to it. We really don't get crazy. We don't do stupid, crazy things. And that day, we weren't doing stupid, crazy things. And this just kind of goes to show you don't have to be doing stupid, crazy things. What was that? You don't have to be doing stupid, crazy things to need a helmet. So we'll definitely approach that differently in the future. Especially in the sand, we're definitely going to wear helmets. Now we can get to the damage. So right away, you can see that the windshield got, well, not really broken, but the mounts all broke off. All 4 of the mounts just snapped. You can tell right away it's kind of a goofy homemade windshield, but the mounts that we were using were very good mounts. They're the same mounts you would get with any aftermarket windshield. So they were good, strong mounts, but they all shattered right off. And then of course the plastic, stress marks everywhere on the plastic, scratches. It got very bunched in on both sides. And then just stress marks everywhere, scratches everywhere. And then of course the cage, it held up pretty good. You got some bowing there. And then right here, there's a lot of strength in this bar. So of course something had to give. This bar had to give. And that happened on both sides. It's a little worse on this side. And then the bowing of the cage on both sides. Other than that, the cage held up pretty well. You see pictures and videos of YXZ cages just completely collapsing, even under pretty mild rolls. Those are usually the 2016 through 2018 cages. In 2019, they made them a little bit stronger. I mean, they're still not as badass as like some of the aftermarket cages with the 95 wall and intrusion bars and extra support. But for a stock cage, you can see it did hold up pretty well. There might have been a little bit of luck involved there too. The way we rolled was fairly square in the way we rolled side over side. So we got to use the strength of the entire cage. There wasn't like any stress put on one end or the other. So that probably helped a little bit too. And then the suspension, I've scoured the suspension. Maybe a keen eye will see something I don't. The only thing that I can see in the suspension that got bent is this A-arm right here. But I've checked all the mounts. I've checked as good as I can on the frame, and I don't see any cracks or breaks or anything. The back seems to be okay too. Knock on wood. But the driver's side door, the gaps have changed dramatically, and it has to be slammed to open and shut it now. So that worries me a little bit about the frame, but I have seen several videos of people with bent cages, and as soon as they release the cage, the frame typically will pop back into place. So hopefully that's the case with us. The main damage inside is the seat belts. The plastic on the seat belts completely broke off on both sides, and the steering wheel, you can see the wheels are straight and the steering wheel is not, if Ari will move. So I've looked at the mount for the steering knuckle and stuff, and I don't see anything, but something is obviously wrong there. I don't think, I mean, the suspension being bent is going to be a part of that, but I don't think it's bent enough to make it that crooked. So that's going to be something I'll have to look into. So right away from this angle, you can tell that this mirror is completely gone. But if you want to know how crazy this roll was, you can see this side, the mirror didn't even get touched. It didn't even fold in, not a scratch on it. So that's how crazy the roll was. We were just flying on at certain points. But the plastic did get stressed and this didn't get touched. So I don't know how to explain it. Physics, man. Just only other thing is we lost the bead on this tire. We were able to get the bead back on that, and this console completely popped out. Just popped right out. I am fairly certain that's what cut my head. The inside edges of that are pretty sharp. We looked everywhere else in there. There was nothing else flying around in there. We didn't have a bunch of stuff in there with us. But that was the only thing that was flying around in there. So pretty sure that's what cut my head. But other than that, we were able to start it back up and drive it back to camp. We were extremely lucky. As a driver, I definitely got humbled that day. We're very grateful that it was a lesson learned and not a horrible tragedy. I mean, so many things could have gone differently. If the cage wouldn't have held up, we could have ended up with some broken necks, even like broken arms. As I mentioned earlier, that console could have sliced my head back 3 inches farther. I'm dead right now. Super grateful that the kids weren't in the car. I mean, the kids, you can see Ari's wearing her helmet now. She loves her helmet, so she's always in a helmet. And we do try to drive a little more carefully when the kids were in the car, but every time I look at this thing, every time I think about it, I just thank the Lord above that we are able to walk away from it. We're not going to stop. We love it. The kids love it. This is one of the things that we do as a family. Above all, I'm just really glad that it was me and the Great Dane in there and not any of the kids. I obviously have some work to do to get it back to trail worthy. I've already got the A-arm, and I did get a cage. It's not a good cage. It's a 2016 cage. I don't trust that cage. That's not planned to be permanent, but I figure at least I can check the frame with it, make sure that the frame's not bent if that goes on, and then we can start thinking about a more permanent cage. Unfortunately, every cage in the world is well out of our price range because we don't have any money. But kind of the plan right now, unless we can find a really good used one or something, is to get like a weld-it-yourself cage. There's a company actually locally here, I think it's called Combustion Motorsports, that makes weld-it-yourself cages. If you saw my video where I welded the exhaust on the Razor, you know that I'm not qualified for that, but I can at least get it fitted, get it tacked, and take it to a real welder. Then I'll have to paint it. So it'll be a lot more work than just buying a cage, but hey, when you're poor, you gotta work harder to have stuff. So if you do want to see those future repairs, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss them. I appreciate everybody who watches the videos, everybody who comments. I'm a super small channel, so I don't get a lot of comments, but I do appreciate those of you who do. I always try to respond. And just
I'm freezing.
It is freezing, huh? Yeah, so it's really freezing. So we're gonna go. But thanks for watching.